Hello and welcome to Lesson 13, Part B in the Online Terrestrial Navigation course. Today's lesson is the second in a four-part lesson on how to use the tide tables. Just as in Lesson 13A, all of these problems will be solved using the 1983 tide tables. If you don't have a copy of the tide tables, you can download a PDF version from my Patreon page by signing up for any membership level. All membership levels have access to the resource material for the next few lessons, and I'll be putting a few final practice exams up soon. Or if you prefer an actual book, you can order one from Marine Education Textbooks in Houma, Louisiana for about $50. It's the exact same book you'll see in the exam room when you go to the Regional Exam Center. The PDF version on my Patreon page is a pretty big file and may take a few minutes to download depending on your connection speed, but it's worth the wait if you want to get started working these problems right now. So check out the description of the video for a link and jump over to my Patreon and become a member. Not only will you be helping me recover some of the cost of making these videos, but you'll also get access to some valuable resources to help you study. Alright, with that, let's take a look at today's lesson. Okay, question 1. They want us to determine the height of the tide at 20:45 Eastern Standard Time, zone description +5 at Augusta, Maine on 8 March 1983. So just like in the last lesson, we're going to set up our scratch paper the same way. We're looking for an index number, primary station, time of high water and low water, and height of high water and low water. Alright, so let's jump over here to the tide tables. And our index happens to be on page 118 of the PDF. We're looking for Augusta, Maine. So we find it right here, and we get an index number of 851. So we'll put that down on our scratch paper, then open it back up and go to table 2 and look for 851. And that happens to be page 84 of the PDF. And let's find index number 851, which is right here, Augusta, Maine. Here are our corrections. And if you notice, the height has an asterisk beside it, and not a plus or minus. That's a you multiply that 0.45 by the primary station. So let's put our corrections down, and we'll go back, and we see that this is on Portland, which starts on page 32. Let's put that on our scratch paper, and let's go back and find Portland in our primary tables, which happens to be on page 23 of the PDF. Alright, our date we're looking for is 8 March. There's our March. We're looking for the 8th at 20:45. Something you need to take a look at is these corrections. We're going to add 4 hours and 3 minutes to the high water and 5 hours and 33 minutes to the low water. We're looking for 20:45, so we're going to have to find which two tides that 20:45 falls in between. Right here, initially looking at it, that 20:45 is going to fall between 12:52 and 19:10. But when you look at it, when you add the corrections to it, does it still fall? Does our time still fall between the two times listed in the primary tables? This one, yes, the 20:45 still falls between those two times after you add the corrections. You will run into them, few questions where after you add the correction to it, your time in the problem doesn't fall between these two times, and you'll have to go back and adjust. But for this one, it works out. We're looking at a low water of 1252.9 feet. We're looking at a high water at 1910 and a height of 7.3 feet. So let's go ahead and put our primary data in, and we'll apply the corrections. And again, over here, that asterisk means that you multiply that correction. And so far, we're at the exact same point that we were in the last lesson. Take a look at our zone description. It's +5, and Augusta is on the +5 meridian, so there's no zone description correction or no daylight savings time correction here. And we've got all the information that we gathered up in our last lesson. So let's tidy this up a little bit just to clear the screen. And now our next step that we need to do is we need to get the duration of the tide and the range of the tide. So we take our times of our two tides and our heights of our two tides. And when you subtract it, the duration from high tide to low tide is 4 hours 48 minutes, and the range is 2.9 feet. Sometimes you'll see on that low tide it's a negative number. Just remember, when you subtract a negative number, you actually add it. So if that were a negative number, we would be adding the range there. And then the next thing we need to look for is our time to the nearest tide. What that means is it wants us to go into the problem, the time that they're looking for, and we got to figure out which one of these tides that time is closest to. In this case, we can look at it and see that 2045 is closer to 1825 than it is to 2313. Some of the questions, you'll have to do the arithmetic on both times. I believe, I'm not sure if it's this lesson or maybe the next lesson, but I know there's one somewhere in these 4 lessons that time falls exactly in the middle, so it doesn't matter which tide you use. But you need to figure out which tide that the time is closest to, and then get that. So we would subtract 1825 from 2045, and we get 2 hours and 20 minutes, and that 1825 is low water. That's important. You want to put that on your scratch paper there. So we've got 2 hours and 20 minutes to the nearest tide. We have a range of 2.9 feet and a duration of 4 hours and 48 minutes. All right, so I'm going to tidy that up just to make room on the screen here. So we have a duration 448, range 2.9, and time to the nearest tide is 2 hours and 20 minutes. Now we're going to go back to the tide table, and we're going to look for a table 3. Comes right after table 2, and in the PDF that is on page 110. This is table 3. It's going to give us the height of the tide at any time. If you take a look at the bottom, there's some instructions here on how to use this table. For now, the main thing that we're going to concentrate on is right here. When the nearest tide is high water, you subtract the correction. When the nearest tide is low water, you add the correction. So our problem, we are working with low water. So we're going to add the correction. If you've been studying with my videos up to this point, you know that if there is a way that I can use a calculator and do this mathematically, I do it. I really don't like tables because tables don't give you exact answers. And you're going to see throughout these lessons, sometimes you have to round it. sometimes if you round it, what I say is correctly, you come up with a wrong answer in the multiple choice. But I assure you that all these questions and answers come straight from the Coast Guard database. And if they say the answer is C, then well, you have to mark it C. That's what they want to see on the exam. But you can work through it and see sometimes you come up with answer B when the Coast Guard wants C. What I've tried to do in rounding, you have to round these numbers, and that's what gives you the wrong answer sometimes. But I've tried to, throughout the video, round the numbers to where the answer comes out as to what the Coast Guard wants. So you'll work some of these problems, you'll come out with what you say is the right answer, and I agree that some of these Coast Guard answers are wrong, but if you watch the rounding part, you'll see how the Coast Guard rounds and comes up with their answers. So we're going to enter this table at 4 hours and 40 minutes because our duration is 4:48, and we're going to go across till we find the time to the nearest tide, which in our case, this question is 2 hours and 20 minutes. All right, so it's all the way over here in the last column. Then we go down to the bottom part, and our range of the tide is 2.9 feet. So we're going to find right here 3 feet would be the closest, and we're going to go to the same column that you have right here. So it's going to be all the way over to the last column, and we'll get our correction of 1.5 feet. That's the correction that we're looking for right there, is 1.5 feet. And since we are going to low water, we have to add that correction. So we're going to add 1.5 feet right here. We get 1.9 feet, and that is our answer, B. All right, so if you have any questions, you're gonna run in, you're probably gonna run into some that don't make sense. Just scroll through the video, find the question number, maybe leave the question in the comments. I try to reply to the comments as quickly as I can, maybe help you out in the comment section. But all right, so download that worksheet in the description. Hopefully you'll jump over to the Patreon page, sign up for Patreon, throw a little financial support my way. It's greatly appreciated. Work the lesson, and I'll see you on the next lesson.